Welcome to today's session. I want to teach you about how you can build your microapp. And for building the microapp, you need to understand how to configure or build your integration to system of record and which components you will have to touch throughout your journey. So let's start. Let's start with the key components you'll be touching throughout your journey. So we have a system of record. So system of record is a data source that Citrix Workspace integrates with. And it can be either a modern SaaS cloud application like Salesforce, ServiceNow, or others, or it can be on-prem legacy system that you can integrate with. The integration is a component that interacts with the system of record. It connects to it. It's capable to pull out the data from it, as well as store them into the data cache, and finally propagate the changes back to the system of record. A data cache is temporary data store where we persist the data temporarily. And the reason why we're doing that is to be able to identify the changes in the data. So not all of the systems provide you or provide us the event streams, informing us proactively about the changes or the events based on the changes in the data. So the reason why we are storing the data into the cache is to capture the snapshots of the data, compare them, and identify updated, new, deleted, or other changes in the data, and based on that to be able to trigger the notification events for the end users. A microapp builder is a low-code or no-code developer tool that allows our partners or microapps developers to build and customize microapps. What is a microapp? A microapp is a small task-specific application that delivers highly targeted functionality, and you can imagine that as, for example, a PTO request form, a simple PTO request form where you can fill in and submit your PTO request, and nothing else. This is the microapp. It allows you to submit a PTO request or submit incident that you identified while working with some internal system in your organization. And microapps consist of pages and events. Pages you can imagine as a simple pages or forms that the end user can interact with. It either provides detailed information, or as a form it can be filled in and submitted. And events is a definition of the business rules that once those are matched, we trigger notification event to the end user. Event engine is an engine that runs behind the scenes and helps us to identify the changes in the data and trigger notification events. And finally, we provide different types of the end user experience or Citrix Workspace UIs for the end users. It can be either mobile, desktop, or web application. And now let's have a look at HTTP integration. What is it, and what you can do with that? And the reason why I want to talk a little bit more about that is that you will use it throughout your journey, learning about how you can build various types of integrations to different systems of records based on that. So what is it? It is a special and generic flavor of the integration, which you can simply imagine as kind of built-in API client similar to Postman. And what you can do with it? You can build the integration to various system of records for your customers. And how you can do that? By configuring API calls that will pull out the data and propagate changes back to those system of records. It supports RESTful, or it can talk to RESTful APIs. Apart from a simple API calls, it also supports a cascaded or chained API calls. So you can use a parameter from the first call as or a part of a payload that is returned from the first call as a parameter for subsequent call. We will talk about it later. I will show it throughout my demo. It supports multiple authentication options. It supports pagination, and it also supports incremental data synchronization when the system of records provides some data or time-related information as part of its payload. And it can consume nested JSON or OData JSON responses. Now let's have a look how the data flow throughout the components I was talking about. I think it's important to understand because you will be building something that will basically flow the data through. So let's start, we're starting with a system of record where the data integration is pulling out the data from it, and it stores the data into the data cache. I was talking about it, and then as soon as the data are stored in the data cache, we have pages that allow the end user to surface those data, as well as we have a business logic rules set in or as a part of the events. So based on that, we trigger the events. We provide detailed information to those events on a pages, and and finally we deliver those events and detailed information to the end users as a part of the end user experience where they can surface it. And now imagine the situation: you're a manager, and you get a notification about the expense approval request. So you decide to approve it. So you hit approve button on notification card or detail page, and the data has to fly back. So the data from the button or the decision from your decision from hitting the button has to be propagated back to the system of record. So as soon as you hit a button, the data flow back to the data integration, and data integration has so-called service actions configured, so it understands how to ingest those data and how to propagate those changes back into the system of record. So finally, the data or the records are being updated in the system of record. That was it about the slides. Now let's have a look at how to do that, how to get your hands dirty, and how to build something meaningful. Okay, so let's get our hands dirty. Let's build something. Citrix Workspace provides a whole bunch of out-of-the-box integrations that you can integrate your system with. But it doesn't provide, and it will never provide, the integrations to all of the systems in the world. So most likely you will be in a situation where your customer wants to integrate some system with Citrix Workspace, and you will have to build the integration for it. So as I said, we provide a whole bunch of out-of-the-box integrations, but we don't provide the integration to a system called PagerDuty. PagerDuty is incident management system that supports or provides the engineers a way to manage the incidents and manage their resolution, be informed about the incidents, and support various systems. So we will build the microapp that will allow users to file the incidents from a microapp into the PagerDuty, as well as surface PagerDuty or incidents that are being filed in PagerDuty in a simple microapp that will provide a list of those incidents as well as details for them. As you can see, I have my empty workspace here, so there is nothing built there so far, and we have to build something. Let's start with logging into Citrix Cloud. And as soon as I log into Citrix Cloud, I have to choose my instance. I have a couple of them here, so I choose my instance, and it brings me to administrator's dashboard, where I will see a whole bunch of tiles. And as soon as my page loads, I will have to hit Manage button on microapp's tile to get to microapp's administration. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, here's my microapp style. I have a couple more, but I have to hit my manage button, and hitting the manage button brings me to a landing page of microapp service where I will be able to add integration or to manage what I need. As you can see, there is a landing page that provides basic information about how to start, how to add the integration, how to assign microapps, and how to eventually customize them. So let's get started. So I hit get started button, and it brings me to this empty page because I don't have anything built so far. So I need to start with adding the integration to integrate the system of record. So I hit the add integration, and this window pops up, and it offers me three choices. I can continue with adding the out-of-the-box integration with the provided templates. As you can see, there is a couple of ready-made integrations you can use straight away, but this is not what we want to do in our session. So let's hit this button again, and let's create a new integration to HTTP web service. So I hit continue button, and it brings me to HTTP integration configuration page, where I have to configure a bunch of parameters. So let's start with the name. I call it PagerDuty, and I need to provide base URL. Base URL is the URL of the system's APIs. So as you can see, the URL of my PagerDuty instance is citrix-converge.pagerduty.com. But PagerDuty APIs, they listen on a different URL. And what is also important to understand that as soon as you want to build the integration to the system, you need to understand the APIs of that or the API of that system. You need to understand the endpoints, the methods you will need to call or use when performing the calls to that system. So what I did already, I went through PagerDuty documentation. I have created my or enabled my API access. Some of the system, they don't provide it straight away, so you have to do that explicitly. And I have my nodes, so I will not have to switch there and back to PagerDuty API documentation, so I have my nodes aside. So I'll be copying and pasting those information from my nodes. So let's start with the PagerDuty API URL, which is api.pagerduty.com. Then I want to pick some nice icon for me. So let's pick this one. And HTTP integration provides or supports, already talked about it, various authentication methods. So apart from basic, you can use NTLM, bearer token, API keys, or auth too. And again, from PagerDuty API documentation, I know and I understand that I have to use API keys because this is what PagerDuty supports. I know that the method used for that is authorization header named authorization. There is a prefix defined for that. So let me paste it there. It's this one, and I have my API key. So I paste it here, and I hit add button, and the integration is being added for me behind the scenes. Okay, here we are. So we have the HTTP integration to PagerDuty added. Now I need to configure, because as I said already, we want to surface the incidents that will be filed in a PagerDuty. So I need to configure the so-called data endpoint. One important thing here to understand, sometimes services don't return a payload when the respective data are not being created there. So as you could see, there are no incidents here for me. And I want to make my life easier, I want to leverage the payload parsing capability in the HTTP integration. So I will create one incident for us. So we will get a payload that will be parsed, and the data structure for caching the data will be created based on that. So let's create the incident. Assign it to me. Let's call it Converge Demo, and I will put hey converge here into the description, and I will create the incident. Okay, so we have our incident here, and let's continue here. So let's add data endpoint, and I want to surface the incident, so I will call it incidents. And I know again from API documentation that the endpoint name is incidents. I don't need any parameter. I know that the request method is get, and let's test the service. Let's see what it returns. Okay, so great, 200. Okay, so the call was the call made was successful. So let's see the response, and response returns me the incident. There is there are a couple more of the incidents that I used for basically testing, but they are resolved. So as you can see, there is a whole bunch of incidents, but we only have this one Converge demo unresolved. I basically resolved the alt, so you can better see the new incidents you will create, or we will create in our micro app. Okay, so now what we need to do, we need to fetch the data structure and create a data structure for data structures for caching the data. So let's identify from API call payload how the data structures should look like. So I hit this from API, and as I said at the beginning, if I would not have any records in my PagerDuty instance, what I could do is to copy and paste a simple JSON structures from API documentation, where you can typically find the examples, and the data structures could be also created from that. But we have incident in our PagerDuty, so let's hit this from API button. Okay, and also one thing one important thing is to have a look at the payload and understand how it is structured. And again, I know, because I did try and I went through the documentation, that I need to move my root path. So I need to move it to the incident, because there is a kind of an envelope in my JSON payload. So I will move it here, and I will press from API button again, so it will replace my structures here, and I have incidents and incidents assignment here. So as you can see, there is a JSON pointer here and a primary key, and as the JSON payload is nested, we create a subsequent pages down from the root path. But for the root, we need to, and therefore we create a or define primary keys there. So this is why it's saying here auto-generated. But for the root, we need to set a primary key. So I hit this pad button to add it, and I went through the documentation, and I know that there is a attribute called ID, which is unique, and I enabled it. I enable it as a primary key. Also, what I can do, I can ignore part of the payload. So, for example, I can ignore the attributes that I don't need to use, so they will not be cached in our data cache. So I hit my save button. Everything is green here, so it's okay. So I hit add, and What I also did when I went through the payload, I understood that the payload is structured in a way that it doesn't provide me the detailed information or the human readable information about the assignees of those tickets. So if I return back, I test service again, I hit view response body and I look at the incident, I see in assignments, I see that there is assignee ID somewhere here, and what I again did by understanding the documentation, a couple of tries, I identified that I need to perform a subsequent API call to pull out the detailed or human readable information about the assignee of those incidents from PagerDuty. So I hit this three dots menu button here on the right hand side, and I choose Add Child API Call, which will bring me to the configuration of the child API call. And I know that the assignments are stored in a table assignments. So I use this as a parent table. And I know that the endpoint that provides the information or detailed information about the users is called users. Let me just double check that. And yes, it's users. And that endpoint for providing the detailed information about the users, it requires a parameter, a path parameter called ID, a user ID. So I will be passing the assignee ID from my first call into a child call in order to get the detailed information about the assignees, the human readable information. So what I need to do is to, in a master tag, put the ID here, and those master tag tags will be, or the placeholder in the master tags will be replaced by ID. I need to hit add parameter. It will be called ID again. And I know it's so the ID is stored in a column in my cache database, and it's called assignee ID. Here we are. And I also need to choose a default one. The default one appears here because my HTTP integration already performed API call. It has some data stored already, and there is some ID value here. So it's here for the reason or for the situation where there is no data. We have something default that will be used as a parameter. So now I can test my service again. I can test my child call, and I can look at a response. And in my response, I can see that there are some human readable information about the assignee. And now I want to cache those, right? So I need to create a child data endpoint that I will call assignees. And again, I want to parse the API response to understand the data structures. So I do that. And again, I looked at it and I understand that there is some user that holds the information. And if I look at his table, I understood that I need to move my root to the user and perform that again. Okay, now what I need to do is to set the primary key, because those two are as auto-generated, but I need to set it for the root, and I need to find the ID again, which is unique. I hit save, and something is wrong. Okay, I didn't provide API endpoint name, so it's Chinese. Okay, there we go. So now we have the data loading configured. So as I already mentioned, I want to build a microapp that will provide me the list of the incidents and the details to them. And the data for those, or for the microapp, they are in two different endpoints, in two different data structures. So I need to check if there are relationships created that I will need to use for building the microapp to provide information about the incident itself, as well as a human readable information about the assignee. And I don't see the right relationship here, so I need to create my own. Those relationships that are created here are the relationships that were created when parsing a nested JSON and creating a data structures for my cache. So I will add relationship. Okay, so the relationship will be between table, incidents, assignments, and assignees. So I will call that incident assignees, and I need to pick a primary key here that will be assignee ID, and from assignees table it will be ID. So I will save it. Okay, now we have the right relationship. The other thing I have to do right now is to, as we said at the beginning, we also want to file new incidents into the PagerDuty. So what we have to do is to configure a so-called ServiceAction. ServiceAction is again API call that will modify, delete, or create a new record in a system of record. So I hit my service actions menu here. There is no service action so far, so I will add one. So I will call it create incident, and I need to configure a bunch of parameters for that. So I know that one of the parameter required again from API documentation is called title. So I name it title here. I mark it as required. The other one is a description. I mark it required here. Okay. Now, again, from the API documentation, I know that I have to use a method called post, and the endpoint URL is called incident. And I need to configure a bunch of parameters. I need to configure a header parameter because I need to authorize myself, and I need to tell PagerDuty on behalf of which user I'm filing the new incident. So let me help myself with my notes. So there will be header parameter, okay, and it will be static value, and so okay, I need to put my value here, so it'll be again as we did at the beginning when configuring the data loading token. And the other parameter is called from. It will be again static value, and I will use my user details here. So it would be also possible to use that as a dynamic parameter based on the user identity information, but for the sake of simplicity, I will just use this constant here. And okay, I need to we have header parameters, and we also need, again, from PageDuty documentation, we understood that we also need some body, and we need some body parameters. So we need to pass those two parameters as a part of API call. So again, I will call it title, and I will use this action parameter, choose this title here. I will use description, and I will use description, and we also need a body, as I mentioned. So basically what we will do, we will as soon as the user fills the form field and submits the form, the service action will map those service action parameters from the form and passes them over to the to API call and perform API call with those parameters. As I said, we also need a body. So we support a few of the body types. We support form data, form URL encoded data JSON or OData JSON. But I know that PagerDuty expects a JSON body. Now I have my JSON body prepared because, as I said, I did some preps before the session itself. So I will paste my JSON here. Let's look at it. So let me expand it. Let's look at it. So as you can see, the body consists of different parameters. But what is key to understand here? I have a title here and I have a details here. So what will happen when the end user will perform the service actions? As those parameters are being passed from the form to data to integration, and integration will make API call. It will replace those placeholders in the mustache tags with the actual value from the form field and pass them over to PagerDuty. So that's the reason why I have to modify the JSON body from PagerDuty API documentation example and use those placeholders in mustache tags. So we will passing the right values to the PagerDuty, and I will hit add. So I have created my service action. So if you remember, we started with configuring a simple URL with some basic or with some API key authorization to PagerDuty. We have configured the data loading. So we're getting the data from PagerDuty about the incidents and human readable data about the assignees of those incidents, as well as we configured service action that will enable us to create an incident in a PagerDuty. So let's start building the microapp. But let's first verify that the integration is able to synchronize the data. So let's look at the synchronization. Let's look at the details, and we can see it performed the two API calls already. So it performed the API call to incident endpoint, and the status was 200, so it was successful. And then it performed a child call to the user's endpoint with a parameter, and that one was successful as well. What we can do is to configure the synchronization frequency here. So I can, let's say, configure every 5 minutes, but as well as I can run the synchronization process manually if needed. So let me hit save button. So apparently our HTTP integration to PagerDuty works, and it's able to pull out the data. So let's build a microapp. Let's build a microapp or let's verify if we configured a service action properly. So I have created a blank microapp. So what I need to do right now is to give it some nice name. So let's call it create incident. Okay, let's pick some nice button. I don't know. Let's use this one. Okay, and there we go. And now I need to create a page. So the page will be a form that will allow me to fill it the form and submit the incident to PagerDuty. So I hit add page. I call it create incident. It will be of type form, and I want to use table incident assignees because maybe I will need to provide the data about the list of the assignees and those are being stored in sorry, in assignees, not assignments. This one. So I hit add, and let's start building the page or the form. So I know I will need some simple field that will be filled by the end user, and the title of the incident will be filled in. So I hit the component here on the left hand side, and I can add it. As you can see, this is the page builder that is really easy to understand, drag and drop. On the left hand side you have the bunch of components you can use. In a center section you have instant preview of what you are building, and on the right hand side you have the options or parameters of respective components you're adding to the page. So as I said, I want to use this component for filling the title in, so I call it title. And I want to have also some bigger text field for a more comprehensive description. So as you've seen previously, I just clicked. So there are two options here. You can either click on a component or you can drag and drop it into the form. And I have my text area for a longer description of the incident that I will call description. Also, what I want to do is to make those fields required. So I hit this toggle here and here. And the reason why I'm doing that is that my PagerDuty API expects those to be filled in. And to prevent or to avoid the frustration of the users submitting partially filled forms and hitting or getting the errors from the service, it's better to make those required fields as required. And until those are filled in by the end users, it's not possible to submit the form, so the submit button will be inactive. We will see that. So now I have those two fields here, title and the description, and let's add a button. So a button, let's call it submit incident. And okay, so we have a nice name for the button, but what we have to do, what is really key here for this form, is to bind that form to the service action, or bind the service action to the button. We configured the service action for creating the incidents, so I have to hit this action section, and I want to run service action. And as you can see, apart from running the service action, you can configure a go to URL to the button. So by hitting the button, you bring the user to some different page. So I have my service action chosen, and now I need to choose which data provider I will call the the service action from. So I have only one, so it's simple here. So I choose PagerDuty, and there can be a whole bunch of service actions configured in your HTTP integration. So I hit this create, I expand my dropdown and I see there is only one, so it's simple again. I choose the create incident. Now, as you remember, we configure a bunch of parameters for that service action. So we have to map those parameters to the components that we have on our form. So those components are being passed over to the service action or the API call. So I hit this edit parameters button, and I hit add parameter, and first one is title, and I can map it to either component value or some column value from a data cache, or some constant like true, false, null. Now there are a couple of options here. So what we have to do is to map those to forms form fields. So I choose a component value, and my component here is called title. The other parameter I added is called description, and I'll do the same. I map it to the component value called description, and there we go. One more thing I have to do. Okay, so this is how it looks like. I can preview page by hitting this preview button. Okay, it's being loaded. Now I will be able to see how my page look like. I can change the form factor from desktop to mobile, and as you can see, the button is inactive because I haven't filled in anything. If I fill something here, the button becomes active. Cool, this is what we wanted. So here is my mobile form factor, and now one more important thing I have to do is to enable this create incident as an action. So it will appear in okay, I was logged off in the meantime. So it will appear in my actions section. What I need to do is to enable my my microapp as an action. So what I have to do is to go to the microapp properties, hit the actions button, and choose the page that will be displayed and save as a service action here. Now, the other thing I have to do for that microapp to appear to the user, I have to subscribe it. So I have what I did before the session. I configured my Azure Active Directory. I have created a bunch of users there, and I need to subscribe the microapp to a user or group of users in my Azure Active Directory, so they can see it and interact with it. So let's pick a user. Okay, this is my user, so I subscribe this microapp to a user, and I can also subscribe microapps to groups of users, so you don't have to do it one by one, but you can also use AD or AAD user groups for subscribing the users. Now okay, let me reload it. Nothing here yet. Sometimes it takes a couple of minutes or seconds for the action to appear here. Okay, there we go. We have our create incident action here. So let's try if we did our job properly. So let's file an incident into PageDuty. As an evidence, you can see there is only Converge demo incident here, and I will file a Converge demo from Citrix Workspace. I'll just copy it here, and as you can see, the button is enabled now. I hit submit, and something went wrong, so I made some mistake here. So let me have a look into my ServiceAction log and see what went wrong. And I can see 400 here, invalid input provided. Okay, so I made some mistake in my body somewhere in ServiceAction. So show log as a part of a ServiceAction is a good place for debugging the ServiceAction. Okay, so I have details here, but description here. So my bad. I have to correct it here. Save it. Okay, I was logged out in the meantime. And one more thing I have to do is to check the microapp. It will be misconfigured. The reason why it is misconfigured is that we changed the parameters name that are mapped from the form to ServiceAction. So let's correct it. Okay, and you see integrity warning here. Okay, so we changed the parameter name. Now it is description. Okay, recheck the integrity, and we should be fine now. Okay, so status is okay. So let's try it again. Okay, let's submit, and there we go. A green badge, so the service action was performed successfully. Let's check now in PageDuty if we can see a new incident that we just filed from within Workspace, which is pretty cool. So the end, you don't have to send any users to PagerDuty, and they can surface the PagerDuty from within the workspace. So as you can see, here is my incident that we just filed from the workspace. Great, that worked. So let's build the other microapp as we already discussed. Let's build the microapp that will allow us to see the list of the incidents and the details. So I will create a new microapp. I'll follow the same path. I will add it name, so I will call it incidents. I'll pick some nice icon here. Let's pick this one and let's save it. Now let's create a page. The page will be and now I want to have a table with the list of incidents, and then I will have to, once I click on the incident in a table, I want to see the detail page. So let's start with a incidents page that will be of table form, and as you can see, there is a bunch of predefined templates of the pages. It basically determines what type of components you can use on a certain type of a page. Now what I want to do, I want to build a page that will allow me to list the names of or titles of the incidents and assignees. So the table I need to build this page upon is incidents assignments, because the incidents assignments, if you remember the relationship we created, has a relationship to incidents itself as well as assignees. So it's kind of like a middle table that will, or that has a relationship with both of those tables. So currently we only support one level of the relationship. So if I have one table that has a relationship with the other, I can build the page on which table I want. But if I want to display the data from the first table that is related to first table that is related to those two tables, I have to kind of choose that middle table, which is incidents assignments for me. So let's do that. And yeah, there is a table predefined for me because I have picked the table template, and now I need to add some columns there. So I can call it incidents and let's choose columns. Now let's pick titles. So it's from table incidents, and it will be title. Okay, I have to rename it because I first picked creative, so it's title. And let's add another one, and it will be assignee. So now I need to choose assignees. So as you can see, those are the tables that three of those they have relationships. So I will choose from assignees, and I will choose the assignee name here, and I will just have to. Okay, so I have title, I have assignee, and the first data are being preloaded here. The data from the initial column I picked, and okay, so, and I will also want to provide the details. Now I want to create a detail page. So when I click on this incident, it will provide me a little bit more details on the other page. So let's create the other page. It will be called incident details. It will be detail page, and I will build that page on exactly the same table, incident assignments. I'll add it here. And I want to have this page nicely structured. So I will use a grid component that will create a grid for me. And in that grid, in that grid I will display detailed information. So I will add a couple of text fields that I will fill in from the data cache. So let's add 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And first one will be, let's say, when the incident was created. Created that. The incidents table, okay, created that. And I can format it. So as you can see, it's
date and time, and I only want to see the date there, so I'll just pick a predefined format here. I will change to date. Now I want to display a status, so from incidents table, let's pick the status. Now what else? From incidents table, a type for the incident, and okay, and I want to from the incidents table I will put some so let's put ID there so people can refer to it. Sorry, it's not ID, it's number. It's actually incident number. Okay, there we go. Now I want to also display a title. It doesn't have to be in a grid because it's a little bit longer, and a description. Okay, so there will be title. Okay, again from the incidents, title, and again from the incidents, summary. And okay, we can also put here the, let's say, assign email address to have something different. So once again, okay, and now from table assignees, let's put assignee email, so people know who is the assignee, who they can contact. Okay, so we have this detail page. Now let's put a back button there. So once the user sees the detail of the incident, it can, or she can go. She can goes back to the list of the incidents. So let's put a divider there, and let's put a back button. So the back button will point. Okay. So the back button is here. Now one more thing we have to do is to go to incidents page and set which page will be provide the details upon clicking. So it will be incidents details. Okay, now one or two more things I have to do. I have to go to incidents properties, and I need to enable it as an action again, and I need to point to right page. And I don't want to point it to incidents details, but rather incidents, the list of the incidents, and from the list of the incidents, the end user will be able to go to the incidents details. It's one thing, and I have to subscribe that Microapp. Oh, sorry, I didn't save it. So once again, now let me subscribe. Okay, the user is here. Okay, subscribed. Now let's check. So okay, now it may take a couple of seconds. Okay, there we go. So we have incidents. Okay, we have incidents, and as you can see, the incident that we created in this Microapp pops up here. So I can hit view details. The incident details are displayed here for me, and I can simply go back. Okay, I can file another incident. Okay, I will submit it. It's successfully submitted. We'll check in PageDuty. It's there. Cool. Now what we have to do is to perform synchronization manually, so we don't have to wait another 5 minutes. Let's hit sync button. Let's wait. Okay, it's finished. let's go to the incidents. There we go, error incident, it immediately appears here. Okay, so we learned today about which components we need to get in touch with when creating a new integration, when creating a new microapp. We get our hands dirty, and we learned about how to create an integration based on HTTP integration to the system of record that Citrix Workspace doesn't provide out-of-the-box integration for, and to build a simple microapps for that. So hopefully you learned a lot and you will be able to build something meaningful for you and for your customers on your own. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.